Hello Internet, this is the round 5 game from the Arnhem Regional against a chap, well it says Benjamin here, so I guess he's called Benjamin, but I seem to remember he was a Belgian chap who I hadn't seen before, so I was a little bit curious, didn't know what to expect, but at this point in the tournament I was at 4-1, I think, this is round 5 isn't it, so he was at 4-1 as well. So, he was obviously good enough to, get to here. So, I'm not going to take anything lightly at all. Now, this is an interesting lead from both of us because, on the one hand you can see, I've got my Terrakion for his Arcanine and I've got my Cresselia for his Conkeldurr. But then, I'm not going to be one-shotting either of those. And he can, Drain Punch my Terrakion. And he can knock off my Cresselia and he can possibly burn and do awkward things with his Arcanine as well. So actually I think, although it might look at first glance I've got a pretty good lead, I think he's got the better lead here. I protected my Terrakion and excuse me, I just want to start getting some damage off on this Conkeldurr. I think I've got a bit more wiggle room basically if I can get rid of this Conkeldurr straight away. He tries to burn my Terrakion, but he doesn't Drain Punch it. He does get this knockoff, which does a lot of damage onto my Cresselia. The next turn is, I'm supposing, he's dooming his Conkeldurr to the fate of my Cresselia's Psychic. He goes for the Mach Punch here to get a bit of damage on my Terrakion. I do Psychic the Conkeldurr, so very straightforward first 2 turns here. And the Arcanine, as we can see, flinches. So, what a lovely move Rock Slide is. I have got Lumberry, haven't I? So if he was trying to burn Terrakion, then, at least it would have, I would have been safe for the time being. Now, what was interesting, because, I can take some information from those first 2 turns, I can see that his Arcanine is very, very slow, because my Cresselia is moving, before it. Obviously, my Cresselia is faster. Now, he brings out Talonflame, which, if you look at my team, you might think, wow, that team's really Talonflame weak. But, surprisingly, I don't find it to be too much of a problem. I do have Terrakion, I do have Thundurus as well. Cresselia can take a hit, Brillium's got its Sash, all the rest of it. But it's never nice to see. He's got 2 fire types, I've got my Terrakion as well. So I'm thinking, well, okay position, but Terrakion obviously is taking that Mach Punch damage and it is in Brave Bird range. So I protect my Terrakion. Very obvious moves at this point. He sees through that, he makes a nice move, he goes for the U-turn on my Cresselia and it takes it out. So I'm thinking, right, that's a banded Brave, a banded Brave Bird. That Pokemon is called Brave Bird. That's a banded Talonflame. And basically this turn works out perfectly for him because he goes for a Morning Sun on Arcanine as well. So, he made a really nice move there. I can see that this is a full bulk Arcanine. It's not, offensive at all, so it won't have close combat. My Terrakion is safe, basically. What have I seen so far? Has this Arcanine shown Protect yet? I can't remember. Oh, it has now. Okay, so so I see that it's got Protect. I see that it's got Will-O-Wisp, and I see that it's got Morning Sun as well. So I'm presuming that this last move is, Heat Wave or Flamethrower or something like that. He protects his Arcanine here, though. He goes for the Thunder Wave. He's given up trying to burn my Terrakion. He just wants to paralyze it now. But, thankfully from that flinch before, I have still got my Lumberry. And, I can get this Rock Slide off, unparalysed. So I get a nice bit of damage on this Thundurus. Because I saw that Cresselia was faster than Arcanine, I know that my Breloom is faster than the Arcanine as well. I think that if he does taunt the Breloom here, then I'm basically, I'm getting a free, Rock Slide off. He's not trying to paralyze me or hit me with a Thunderbolt or anything else. So I felt like, if he taunts me, then he's sort of sacrificing his Thundurus' turn here, and my Terrakion is the one that's doing the work here. So my Breloom, the Spore, was just sort of an afterthought really, and he does protect his Arcanine this turn, so that's safe from that. The next turn, I take my Terrakion out because I'm expecting him to want to try and Thunder Wave it again. So I put my Thundurus in. He does taunt Brillium this turn, so that's a a good enough move. I was basically, there we go, using the Spore again. I was going on the same mentality as the last turn. So either he can do that. I don't want my Thundurus taking a Thunderbolt on the way in or anything like that. And he does go for the burn, so he switches up his moves, which is obviously, you know, a good thing to do. You want to be switching up your moves in VGC. He taunts and burns my Thunderous, so, you know, I'm not in the best of positions, but I'm thinking, well, what's the worst thing he can do if I bring my Terrakion back in? He can, you know, they don't tend to Thunderbolt Breloom. You know, Hidden Power is not going to knock out my Terrakion. He could try and burn the Terrakion, so that was, I suppose, the thing that I was worried about most. So I go for the taunt. The Arcanine did protect last turn, didn't it? So I'm definitely getting this taunt off. Now he Thunderbolts my Thunderous, getting a little bit of damage off, Citrus Berry activating here. And we can see now that his fourth move is not actually Heat Wave, it's not a Flamethrower, it's Snarl, so this is a proper support Arcanine here, but because I brought my Terrakion in, it gets the Justified boost. So I'm sitting there with a +1 Terrakion in front of 3 Pokemon that are all weak to Rock. Now he does have the Talonflame in the back, which obviously can Brave Bird it first, so I'm not in the, you know, in the best position here, but, you know, I'm okay for this turn. Basically the worst thing he can do now is try and Thunder Wave my Terrakion, because, you know, I've used the Lumberry, so I'm shutting that down. I'm taunting the Thunderous, and I'm getting this +1 Rock Slide off without any fear of, you know, Thunder Waves or anything like that. The +1 obviously does knock out Thunderous from here. It does a nice chunk of damage to this Arcanine as well, who now, yeah, reveals Citrus Berry, so really a very bulky Arcanine, and it flinches again. Yeah, so this is why I love Rock Slide so much. You know, it just opens up opportunities like this. But the game isn't over yet. Now, is using Brave Bird. Both of these Pokemon, Thunderous and Terrakion, are in Brave Bird range. I don't have Protect on Thunderous, so he could have a guaranteed KO there. But then again, if he doesn't target Terrakion, he's lost the game, basically. He needs to target Terrakion. If he does target Terrakion and I protect it, which is kind of obvious, then I can Thunderbolt this Talonflame and, you know, possibly knock it out. So, you know, there was this great debate really in my head. Is he going to just do the obvious move? Is he going to Brave Bird my Terrakion? Obviously, if I protect my Terrakion and he knocks out my Thunderous here, I've lost the game, because then he can just Brave Bird my Terrakion next turn. So I feel like if he does target my Terrakion, because we can see I'm not protecting here, if he does target my Terrakion, it goes down, but I've got to hope a -1, because it's used Snarl, a -1 Thunderbolt plus the recoil damage would take this Talonflame out. So there's lots of things that could have happened on this turn. He does go for the Brave Bird, which I'm presuming is banded. It does knock out the Terrakion. He does go for the Terrakion, so I could have protected there. And I get my Thunderbolt off. So he's taken maybe about, I don't know, 12-13% recoil there. -1 Thunderbolt. I need this to knock it out, and it does. Now, I did calculate that afterwards. That was very, very, very close. So I'm, you know, again, you know, maybe lucky, maybe it's just the team, I don't know, who knows. But I got the knockout. Arcanine's taunt wears off. Thunderous is, you know, burnt here, so obviously he's going to protect this turn just to get rid of my Thunderous. You know, I just tried to, you know, Thunderbolt over this turn, yeah. But basically it's come down to Brilliant with its Sash intact against a slower Arcanine at about, what, 60%, 60% is it? Is it? I don't know. Come on, HP bar, where are you? So, obviously I'm going to go for the Spore, because that's the best thing to do. I know that, like, he can't stop the Spore, and then it's in the hands of the Sleep turns, basically. So, put it to sleep. Oh, there we go. Yeah, it's the sort of 60-65%. I'm thinking at this point, yeah, I've won the game, haven't I? You know. But then I see this Mach Punch damage, this disappointing Mach Punch damage, this really bulky Arcanine. You know, it does a good amount of damage. Arcanine could wake up this turn, but it doesn't. It stays asleep. And pretty much because it did stay asleep, because it didn't wake up the first turn, you know, there was a 2 in 3 chance that basically I'd won the game here. If he did wake up this first turn, he could have used Will-O-Wisp. He probably would have used Will-O-Wisp, and that definitely, you know, would have probably given the game to him. You know, obviously there's a 15% chance he could miss the Will-O-Wisp and whatnot, but so, you know, the odds were definitely in my favour at this point. But because it doesn't wake up first turn, it's still asleep. I can Mach Punch it again. If it woke up here, and used Morning Sun, then okay, we'd just cycle through it again, Spore, Mach Punch, Spore, Mach Punch. If it Will-O-Wisp, then it would still be in Mach Punch range next turn, and basically I can just knock it out. You know, it stays asleep, so either way, just because it didn't wake up that first turn, I won that game. But, you know, again, not an easy game by any means, you know, quite an interesting game as well. So, you know, this is round 5. I've not had an easy game at all. Like, all of these rounds have been, you know, somewhat nerve-wracking. But, you know, 5 rounds down. I think that's 5 rounds down, isn't it? Yeah, that was round 5. So, so right now I am 4-1. I think I said there was 4-1 at the beginning of this. So I was 3-1 at the beginning of this. So, you know, ignore that. So I'm 4-1 now after these 5 rounds. You know, going into, got 2 more rounds of Swiss, which, you know, I'll upload in the next 2 games. But hopefully, you know, you're still enjoying this. You know, please feel free to, you know, like and whatever, do all the YouTube business. Thanks for watching, guys, and bye for now.